Kia ora everybody, welcome to the Northland Artist Conversation. My name is Mark Kelly. Normally sitting across from me is my co-host Andrew McKenzie. Unfortunately Andrew is away at the moment. He's just a bit busy with work and life in general, you know. So from time to time we all need to take a break, and Andrew's just having a wee break at the moment. Andrew, mate, we'll see you when you get back. These things are always much more fun when you have a little bit of back and forth. So I will do my best to do this by myself. I'll make you proud. Today's artist, woo, amazing. Marino Begman, writer of short stories and working on a novel. Man, she really is giving it a go, and a really good go too. She talks about some really amazing things in the podcast. She talks about what she's got coming up. I really loved the fact that she was able to sort of talk about her journey kind of coming through, wasn't easy. She talks about her time living in a 3-bedroom house with like 6 kids and mum and dad, and a 3-bedroom house in Pakuranga. And, she talks about some of the challenges that she faced at school, how she dealt with those, really going through all the way and sort of talking about, for her, what her life has been like and her joys and her some of the tragedies she's gone through as well. She talks about, moving to Australia and then moving back and then moving to Australia and then moving back. And, then she talks about discovering writing. And, she has this really amazing little journey through writing. And, as someone who knows her, and Marino and I have been friends for a little while now, nearly a year, there's a lot of stuff that came up that I had no clue about, and I always find those things absolutely fascinating. I think that's one of the big reasons why we do this, is to learn about people. Because a few podcasts ago we had Michael Boda, who's also another friend of mine, learned a whole new bunch of things from him. Adu Singh, who's also a good friend of mine, learning some stuff about him as well. It's you talk with these people and you find out these little amazing nuggets of goodness. And for me, that's really what this podcast is about, is really getting to know people, learning about them, their journey, how they discovered their art form, and then really going from there. So look, enough of this chitter from me. Let's sit down and have a conversation with Marino Begman. Marino Begman. Get you right as you're laughing. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Good. Thank you very much for coming into the 5 Elements Media studio today and joining us. This is a huge honour for me, and this is very cool. So welcome. We do appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
It is. Absolutely. Now, obviously, you're here today in like a dual capacity.
Well,
you're here as an artist yourself, because you are a bit of a wordsmith, and
I like that.
And you've written some stuff that's been published, and you're also currently working on something as well. But what most people may not know, and it's been referenced a few times in videos, is that you handle all of the communications for the Northland Artists Conversation.
That I do.
You do. So when people are sort of expressing an interest to come in and sit down, you've either reached out to them or they've reached out to us, and all those emails back and forth sort of go through you. You're kind of the gatekeeper,
I am,
if you will.
I like it.
Which is great, yeah. And honestly, it's been really amazing to have you do that. So thank you so much. So now that we've sort of touched a little bit about what you do within the podcast. I'm really interested to know more about your creative outlet, because obviously we've been friends for a little while now, you know, but we've never really sort of talked about the artistic side of you. You know, we give each other a bit of shit backwards and forwards about how you're meant to write.
Well,
and
writing police.
Yes,
What
the writing
not?
police right here. You know, so it'll be really interesting to sort of talk about your journey into writing, your discovery of words, your love of words, and then kind of everything that you've done along the way. How does that sound?
Sounds peachy.
I think it's pretty good. So, it's just Marino Begman. That's it.
Marino.
Marino.
Moana. Begman's that's my married name. Yeah.
Married name. Now, you were born in...
The Waikato.
Yes, specifically.
Waikato Hospital.
There we go. Hamilton. Hamilton.
Yep.
Hamilton. And then...
Why were you?
No,
Oh.
God, no. No.
Hey.
No disrespect to people in Hamilton. And then now your family were only there for a short amount of time, and then you left, right? Where did you go from there?
My parents moved all of us to Sydney when I was 6. And so my youngest sister, there's 6 of us, she was born in Sydney.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And we lived there for 6 years. I had my first year of high school in Sydney.
Oh, wow.
Well, it would be the equivalent of intermediate here.
Right, okay, so they go primary, high school? They
go primary, high school. Yep. And so when I came back here at 13, just before I turned 13, I went into Form 2, intermediate,
so
because
second
that
year
which
of
would have been
intermediate,
second
yep.
year of high school in Sydney.
How was the schooling system in Australia? How did you find it? Like, because obviously you went through primary.
Yeah. Actually, there are things that I know about Australian history more so than New Zealand history when I first came back, because we learn all about the gold rush and the animals over there, and you know, all things pertaining to Sydney and Australia.
Yeah.
Not necessarily New Zealand. So when I came back to New Zealand, I went to high school here. There were things that people knew that I didn't know, like the Treaty of Waitangi. You don't get taught that in Sydney. So I would be like, the Treaty of Waitangi, I don't even know what that is, and that's pretty bad for someone of my ethnicity that didn't know anything about the Treaty of Waitangi.
Okay. Yeah.
Because when we moved back, when my parents moved us all back to New Zealand, I spent a little bit of time in Napier. That's where my grandmother's from.
Napier. Love Napier.
I love Napier too.
Yeah. Beautiful there.
Then we moved to Auckland, and we moved to Highland Park, which is just near Pakuranga.
I know it is.
Yeah.
Funny fact, I used to manage the Paper Plus in Highland Park.
Did you really?
Many years ago, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
What years?
I was only there for a year, but it was when I was living in Auckland, kind of doing the band thing. I think it was in my second year, maybe first. No, it'd have been the second year. So, wow,
a long time ago.
2005, maybe somewhere around there.
2005.
2006. 2005, 6 or 7, somewhere around there. Yeah,
I would have been there then, because I'd come back from Sydney. Obviously, I moved to Sydney and had my kids in that, but I came back then.
Yeah,
so I would have been around, but I wouldn't have known you.
Because Highland Park has the Countdown.
Yeah.
Few other...
It had Food Town there for ages.
Yes.
Then they changed that to...
Yep, and then you had a little stream, and then just across the stream was a movie theatre and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Highland Park was also quite close to Howick as well. It's kind of in between
in
the two,
middle.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, we were. So we moved there. And so I went to high school at Pakuranga College. I didn't go to intermediate there because I'd already started
pretty
in
much done
Sydney,
it, right?
and then
Yeah,
I had done my second year at Tamatea in Napier.
Yes.
So I went straight into high school, and there's some things I just didn't know as part of New Zealand history.
Yeah.
But it was a predominantly Pākehā school, because back then there wasn't like now there's a lot of Asians and a lot of South Africans, but back then it was predominantly Pākehā, and I think our family was the only recognisable Māori family.
Right, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we knew some other Māori kids that were there, but because their mum would be a Pākehā and their dad would be a Māori, you'd kind of think, are they Māori or not?
Okay,
Yeah.
right. So did you find that quite tough?
Because most of my schooling was done in Sydney, and they don't have that differentiation between Māori and Pākehā over there because you're in Australia.
Yeah.
So you're either Australian,
Mm-hmm.
Aboriginal, which there wasn't a lot where I went to school, or everyone else.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I was classed in the everyone else category.
Sure.
But then when I came back to New Zealand, there is a big, back then anyway, because that's
This is a few years.
a long time ago.
A few years.
Yeah, when there's not as a diverse multiculturalism as there is
Yeah,
now.
absolutely.
So there was a very definite, well, those are the Māori kids and
Yep.
these are the Pākehā kids.
Yep.
And we were the only family there for a few years before other people that we knew moved in, and then, now it was all those Māori kids and even more, there were still more Pākehā kids then.
Right,
So
right.
it's quite an affluent area, especially back then.
Yeah, definitely. And, I think Howick, is it Meadowbank?
Yeah.
Botany Downs type area has kind of become the nouveau riche
Yeah.
sort of area of
East Auckland.
East Auckland, yeah. Not so affluent in Otara.
No, but that was when we were growing up there, Otara, and because my auntie lived in East Tamaki,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
not Otara, East Tamaki.
East Tamaki.
Yep. Or like Manger Bridge,
Manger.
Yeah. She lived in East Tamaki, and we stayed with her until my dad could get the house that we ended up growing up in. And she would always say East Tamaki. But when we moved to Highland Park, there was those silly differentiations and silly labelling of
very much
suburbs.
so.
Like,
Yeah.
East Tamaki was definitely not East Auckland. That's South Auckland. And East Auckland covered
Yeah.
us. So when we would say, oh, well, where are you? Where in Auckland are you? Oh, we live in East Auckland. And we used to get a lot of East Auckland, like who lives in East Auckland? Because it was mostly Pākehās or
Right.
affluent people,
Okay,
well-off people. And
Yeah.
we certainly weren't well off. I mean, not financially. There's 6 children and both my parents worked. We had the smallest house on the whole street.
Yeah.
No driveway and no fence for ages because mum and dad couldn't afford it. And people, it was
6
just
kids.
6 kids, and it was only a 3-bedroom house. My poor brother had to sleep in the family room.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because he's the
Wow.
only boy, so he
Oh,
couldn't share
true.
with us girls.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so he had to sleep in the family room, which didn't even have any walls. It was just a room that led on to the dining room. And
I believe they call that open plan.
they do now.
Yeah, they
but
do
back
now.
then,
Back then it was just no walls.
yeah, it was just like, well, sorry, son, there's no more rooms, so you're going to have to sleep in this room, and it's got to be tidy because if we have guests,
Yeah.
they're going to see your room. So
Yeah, you can't be a slob.
no, and I mean we are all quite close in age. 4 girls, they're my brother, they're my baby sister. So we all, we lived in an affluent area, but we were just us.
Yeah. What is it they say? They say you buy the dingiest house
Yeah.
in the nicest
That's
street.
right. Then,
And then theoretically you do it up
Yeah.
and it sells for
Well,
lots more and stuff.
it did sell in the end.
There you go.
My parents sold the house about probably 10 years ago now, maybe, for nearly $1 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did it have a driveway and a fence?
It had a driveway, it had a fence.
Excellent.
But like if you look at that house, you think $1 million. And this was 10 years ago. I mean, now it probably sell for even more than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
For this little dingy house that we all, like 3 of my sisters slept in one room, and me and the sister directly under me slept in one room. So that's 5 plus mum and dad in another room, and my brother in the
Yeah.
family room.
Wow. But you made it work for a number of
yes.
years.
Yes, because I'm the eldest and I make things work.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
My sisters will be like, what else? Yeah.
So, from Auckland and going to Pakuranga College, where did you sort of go to from that point onwards?
Well, funny enough, I've always liked words. I topped English classes at school, right? And a lot of my friends were like, this is not meant to be racial, but how could she top the English class? And even I don't know how I did it. I think I fluked it, to be honest.
Okay.
But because sometimes I go through life and I think, oh my God, somebody's going to realise I'm a fake.
You have imposter syndrome.
Yeah, like they're going to tap me on the shoulder any minute and say, hey lady, you're a fake and a phony.
I only learnt about imposter syndrome a couple months ago.
Oh, where did you learn it from? Well, I don't really know what imposter syndrome is. Is it exactly what I just said?
Yeah. So there's an interesting actor by the name of Emil Hirsch, and he's done a few really cool films, and they're not your big blockbuster movies. They're kind of your small independent films. But he was on a podcast and he talked about having imposter syndrome the whole time. How being in Hollywood, someone's eventually going to turn around and go, you have no talent. And for him, that's something that he kind of always lives with. So I think that's sort of...
It's similar then, because
fits quite nicely.
Of what you know of me, you mean?
Pretty much, yeah.
I walk around and I think at any moment someone's going to tap me on the shoulder and say, you are a fake and a phony. You're nothing like what you say you are. And so I know it's horrible to walk around with that cloud. But it's there.
Is that one of those kind of always hovering above your head or always looking over your shoulder type ones?
No, because sometimes I just think,
whatever.
Yeah. I am who I am and you're just jealous, because it's almost like it's a separate personality of my own. Not that I'm schizophrenic or anything like that, but it's almost like I'm telling myself, angel and devil on the shoulders, and depending on what I'm feeling on the day, the devil might win this one,
right?
Or the angel will win this one.
Yeah.
Oh, now I'm sounding like a crackpot, but anyway,
right.
You know what I mean.
We can't say that nowadays.
Oh, you can't?
No, you can't. No.
But what if I was referring to a crock pot that has a crack in it? Can I use it
Sure, why not? Crockpots are still around.
Hey!
Rocky, can I get a call? A crockpot's still around?
They are.
He is unsure. He's trying not to laugh. Rocky's the editor. He's flying solo today. He's trying not to laugh in the background. Like, this is going to be the most random podcast we've done.
A crock pot is no different to a slow cooker. It's the same.
Okay. Well, yeah, they are different because they have similar letters, but they are fundamentally spelt different.
Like a crock of shit.
There we go. Something like that.
Does that refer to a crock pot full of shit?
It could do. That's an older saying, though. I don't think they'd call it a slow cooker full of shit nowadays.
Exactly. See?
They wouldn't. So you have this wonderful way of words, and you're sort of you're in Pakuranga College, and you're just crushing it. And
in English, sports. I played a lot of sport. I didn't. Okay, now here's the truth here.
Okay,
never been revealed to very many places.
Yep.
But when we first met, you met me and not under my name, did you? I was under a different name, because when I was 16 years old, so I was still in Pakuranga College at the time, and because I live in a very my family was quite colourful in the sense that there's 4 of us girls. My dad is a typical working dad. My mum worked full time, and we were living squashed in this house. There was a lot of antics that went on, right? Shenanigans, fights, Anyway, with that,
sibling stuff.
Sibling things, yeah. Holes in walls from losing tempers and whatnot.
Yes.
Right? And I sat there and I thought, man, I need to write this story, right, about my family, because I thought, this is so interesting. Surely someone would want to read this shit, right?
Yeah.
Because it was such crazy crap that I thought there's no way you couldn't write this stuff,
Yeah.
so to speak. So I decided I was going to write a story about my family. But back then, 16, you think, oh yeah, I can do that. I was an avid diary writer. I wrote in my diary every day.
Do you still write? Do you still diarise?
No, I did right up until something happened in my life that wasn't nice, and I didn't want to record it, because my diary, I'd record everything, good and bad.
Yeah,
and then when I'd reread it, I'd think, oh, well, that's so silly. It's just a silly thing. It wasn't that so bad. But something happened in my life, and I thought, this is so crap. I don't want to write it down because I don't want to remember it anymore. I don't want to remember how it feels. So I stopped. I decided for that period of time, I was an adult by then,
that you kind of
that I'm going to put it on a pause,
Yep.
and then wait until my life was happier,
Yes.
and then rewrite.
But we haven't picked that up again.
But no,
though.
even though my life is very happy right now,
Good.
I just haven't picked it up. Instead, though, I did start writing properly, because there's a big difference between writing in a diary or a journal
Yes.
and writing properly.
Yep.
Yeah,
like
writing.
Stephen King writing.
Oh, well, I haven't gotten there yet.
Okay. So you're 16 years old.
16 years old, decide I'm going to write a story
Starting
about my family.
About your life and times in the
And my family.
in the house.
And I thought, and I'd worked out all the
Change
characters.
some names.
Yep, change some names. But I thought, oh no, if I write this under my real name, all my siblings and all my family, because I have a very big extended family. Māori families are huge. So
Yes.
and I thought, oh no, they're all going to know that I wrote it. Mm-hmm. So I decided at 16 that I was going to come up with a non-diploma.
Yes.
So
What is a non-diploma?
It's a name that you write under. That's
So
not
like
your real
like
name.
an alias, right?
Yeah, like an alias. Yeah. Lots of authors do it.
Yeah, J.K. Rowling had one when she did Fantastic Beasts and Where
Yep.
to Find Them initially. It was
Yep.
not under her name.
Correct.
She wrote under another name. I think Stephen King's done it as well.
You'll find quite a few authors do it.
Okay, yeah.
One of the authors that I currently read, he writes under 3 different non-diplomas or whatever, fake names or whatever you want to call it, depending on the style he's writing. So he has mystery, fiction. So under that name, under that genre, he's this name. Whatever other ones. I only read that one genre of his.
Right,
so
okay, yeah.
I don't know what the other ones are.
So you figured out your
I
non-diploma.
figured out, and you know what my non-diploma was?
Go on.
It's still going to be it. So how am I going to hide anything now once I put it out here?
You're just going to throw it out. Let's just chuck it out into the universe.
Okay. It was Peyton Delaney.
Peyton Delaney.
Doesn't that sound like a really cool author's name? Peyton Delaney. And then I thought, if I became a doctor, I'd be Dr. Delaney. Come on.
Which is funny because Dana Delaney played a doctor in the TV series China Beach.
Oh, I remember China Beach.
Look at you, right? Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah, Dana Delaney played a
doctor, but not Delaney.
No, not Delaney.
Oh, so I can still go for it then.
Still go with it.
It's not be patented.
No.
Patented.
Trademarked? Yes.
No, I mean like patent.
Oh, right. Oh, God.
Get
yes.
it?
Yes.
Keep up.
You are very punny tonight.
Just tonight.
Just always.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was my non-diploma, Peyton Delaney, right?
Yes.
And I kept that to myself for at least a year.
Right, okay, yeah.
Which is a long time at 16,
Sure,
and I'm
yes,
bursting, you know.
Yeah.
And then one day I tell my sister, the one that's directly under me, she's 16 months younger than me, and I said to her, oh, you know, because I had to keep it a secret so that if I ever got this book written, no one knew Peyton Delaney was me. And even if my sisters picked it up and thought, oh my gosh, this sounds so familiar, well, it can't be any of us because who's this Peyton Delaney? And I had it all worked out in my head.
Yeah.
But obviously at 16 I was bursting, and I'm a bit of an over-communicator, believe it or not. And I told her that I had this name, this non-diploma. And she was like, what? I said, you can't tell mum and dad. Don't tell them, because our family is really rife with mocking. Like, we get mocked hard.
Right, okay.
And the only way to get out of being mocked hard is to throw the attention onto someone else and mock them hard.
Right,
So
okay.
that they get it.
Yeah.
Or just bloody take it. Just take it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, it was me.
Okay, so
I told my sister.
So we have Peyton.
Peyton Delaney.
So we have Peyton, and then we obviously have an issue keeping secrets for a long period of time, and you just decide that I need to tell someone.
Yeah.
And how did that
verbal
go?
Diarrhea. Well, she mocked the crap out of me because...
of course she did.
Yeah, because first of all, kind of name is Peyton. Where did it even come from?
Yes.
And then I even had a last name, which is a bit lame as well, because where do you get that from? You just made it up. I made it up. And then, so what she did was she held it for a few weeks, and at the time we used to have... Every Monday we would get together and have a family evening. It was a religious thing we did. And so a couple of those went by and I thought, oh, maybe she's forgotten and she's not going to mock me. She's not going to bring it up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then one day we were having this family meeting and my dad was talking and Dana, my sister, she said, oh, why don't we ask Peyton what she thinks? Why don't we ask Peyton what she thinks? And then, of course, my parents like, Peyton? Who's Peyton? And then she's like, it's Marino. Yeah, ask her. And I was like, you're an idiot. And then it was out after that. But so either I have to find another non-diploma, which is not off the books, but well, I probably do now, because when I moved to Sydney the second time, of course, with a name like mine, which people often mispronounce as Merino, like the sheep.
Yeah.
And I'm in
Merino.
Sydney. Yeah, Merino. Oh, Merino. Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
In Sydney, and I used to get all the stupid sheep jokes, and so the last probably 10 years that I was in Sydney, nobody knew my real name. I was Peyton to everyone.
Peyton.
To everyone.
Wow.
To the point where if my family came to visit, like to see me at work, my sister who lived in Sydney, she knew that my name at work was Peyton. But of course my sisters from here would come and they'd be like, oh, come to the counter, excuse me, I'm here to see Marino. Nobody would know who that is.
Who?
Who?
Who are you here to see?
Yeah, who? And then my sister would yell from the car, it's Peyton, you've got to ask for Peyton. And then like, oh, yeah. And it became to the point, I know it's crazy, it got to the point where sometimes even I find it difficult to identify by my real name, because everybody would have, for the last, well, I've been home now for 6 years. So,
yeah.
But before that, for 10 years at least, minimum, everyone knew me as Peyton. Any new person I met, I was Peyton. And so when I'd come home to visit, my parents would call me by my name. And even then I'd be like, oh, no, that's me.
Yeah. Oh, wait, they're addressing me.
Yeah, it's me.
I'd better respond.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Wow.
So that is still my non-diploma. And I did think, oh, yeah, I still want to write that story about my
Oh, that was going to be my
family.
next question. Have you written it?
I haven't written it because
Okay.
I feel like, yeah, well, I'm not sure about other writers, and it's taken me a long time to identify as a writer myself. But as with all crafts, you start off when you first learn, and
you do what you know, right?
That's right. And,
Yeah.
But also your craft improves as you hone it, work it, practice it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It becomes better. So I've written things when I first started writing, which has only been recent, properly, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's crap, that's rubbish, compared to something that I have written that a little later, and I think, oh, that's beautiful, I love that. So to the point where I don't really even count those other things that I wrote.
But that's, that a lot of artists can say that, and we've certainly had a number of people that have sat in the chair that you're in, where like my early work was terrible, and it's like, well, no, your early work it's your work.
Yeah.
Just because it's not where you are now, there's always going to be a natural evolution, from when you start. I mean, I remember sitting with Wendy Cunliffe, and she had started her creative journey drawing like anatomies of frogs.
Yeah, I remember hearing her.
And then, she moves to New Zealand. She has no creative output. A friend says, come on, let's go do pottery. And, here she is now. She's very
Absolutely.
highly respected. as a very skilled potter, but even by her admission, where she started versus where she is now, two fundamentally very different things. And you can even look at singers and songwriters, musicians, actors as well. I mean, we all, as creatives, we tend to be very overly critical of our early work.
Yeah.
I mean, somehow I don't think Brad Pitt's looking at True Romance, going, man, I really crushed it there.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah. Oh, Thelma and Louise, sorry.
Yeah.
And it's a natural learning progression and curve as we go, because you've been published a few times, haven't you?
Well, yes. So I started my actual writing journey after I moved back here 6 years ago. I'd always wanted to be a writer. I knew that. I'd always loved words. I loved lyrics and songs, right? That's probably where I got this love.
English lyrics as well, yeah?
Yes, English lyrics, which is funny.
I just want to draw everyone's attention to the green Rammstein t-shirt that she is wearing. Marino has recently discovered Rammstein, who are a German industrial metal band who sing in German. So carry on, please. We love of lyrics, German lyrics in a band.
Funny you say that because I don't understand anything that they say.
Of course not.
I have to look them up. But
yes.
So my favourite genre really when it comes to music is country music, because of their stories. In most country music, or most country songs, there's a beginning, a middle and the end in that song, in the lyrics, if you listen to the whole thing. And I'm fascinated by that. I've always been fascinated by that.
Favourite country artist?
Well, how can you not go past Dolly and Kenny Rogers, right? Because my parents grew up on that.
Islands in the Stream.
Islands in the Stream was huge for us, but
written by the Bee Gees.
Yeah, crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know, I mean, but that's what I love, is that I've learned over the years that this collaborative idea of sharing ideas with each other, because I came from a family of 6 children, 4 girls, we had to share everything.
Mm-hmm.
Everything.
Yeah.
There was like a basket full of socks. That was the sock
basket.
You had to just grab a
pair.
We had a basket for undies as well. You just grabbed a pair.
Right.
Yep. So I know that sounds
some fascinating insights right about now, I have to say.
That's why I was going to write a book about it, Mark.
Right.
I mean, there's some stuff in there that I'm like, I'm pretty sure no other kids have to share their undies. But anyway, because of that... Do you call it
Shared Undies by Peyton Delaney?
Hey, that sounds pretty
title.
Good, actually. Yeah. Although I wonder who would want to read a book like that.
With a title like that, there'll be a few people going, what the hell am I going to get myself into?
I'm going to read this, and then they'll read it and go, that was a stupid story. I've just wasted $25.
I don't think so.
Shared undies. So, because we shared everything.
Yes.
I'm a very closed person when it comes to sharing my things, whether it's my work, because I feel like it's just not good enough to share. So I always wanted to be a writer, but I didn't see it being an actual career of any kind, just something I'd like to learn how or do.
Yep.
And of course, because when you're young, you think, oh, I'm so good at it anyway. I'll be just so good. I'll sell heaps of, you think this, you dream it.
Yeah.
But then I got married young and I had my children young. And then I didn't write and I didn't go to university. I think when the youngest was 5, I went back to tertiary then.
Okay.
I studied psychology, a couple of papers, and then, which I love psychology too, but it didn't quite hit the word aspect of it, because there are obviously words, but it was very clinical.
Well, yeah, I was going to say if you study psychology, you're obviously not. You're not able to espouse and embellish.
Correct. It's all factual. Yeah. It's science.
It is.
And I'm not.
It's very cold and clinical, sterile. There's
Facts.
not a lot of chance to be verbose.
Correct. And just be me. That's me. I feel I don't. Yeah. I'm colour splashed on dull.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I didn't actually get into writing till I moved back here. I decided, all the kids are gone except for my youngest. I could go to uni. So I decided to go back and finish my psychology paper because it was still in my brain. Oh, you haven't finished it. It's been 20-something years. You should finish it.
Right.
So I did go back and I started with Massey. And then that was, you're older now. And your brain isn't as quick and you don't remember as much. Mm-hmm. And it was much more difficult than it had been in the past. And I thought, forget this. I'm not doing this. I'm just too old for this. And it was my eldest daughter who was studying medical science at the time. She said to me, Mum, why don't you just go and do some writing papers? You've always wanted to be a writer.
Great idea.
Why don't you do some writing papers? And because at the time, when I first said I wanted to be a writer, I don't think they even had writing papers back then. But who knows? I didn't even look into it. And I probably a bit of arrogance because I thought, how hard is it to write? I mean, really?
Well, yeah. I mean, when we had Michael Boda, he talked about the discipline that goes into it.
Well, now I know.
You know now.
Now I know. That's why I need a writing police person often.
Yes, absolutely.
Who messages me and tells me, have you written your 2,000 words today? And I go, of course I have. No, have you?
No.
See the proof. I've written it in my head. Yeah, it is a very disciplined art.
Yeah.
It's not to be taken lightly, really. And I was. So I went to NorthTec.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And I did the first, I think it's called applied writing. Yep, level 5.
Mm-hmm.
So I enrolled into that. And applied writing meaning you've got to apply your work, which I didn't know that's what it meant until I had the interview, because you have an interview beforehand, and the tutor said to me, it's applied writing, which means that you will be submitting your work and it will be being seen and read by other students as well as the tutor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I nearly backed out of it because I thought, oh, no, I can't do that because, oh, no, I'm too embarrassed, it's so embarrassing, and what if it's rubbish and da-da-da.
Yeah.
And she said to me, oh, look, it's not so bad. You'll get used to it. But, it was a huge panic for me. She said, but, I mean, are you a writer if nobody's reading what you've written? She said something like that. Yeah, are you a writer if nobody's reading what you've written? And I thought, that's true.
Wow.
Yeah, so I bit the bullet and I enrolled, and then in that class, there was a short stories paper, and I'd never really done I've never written a short story, and I'd read a few short stories in the past, but I thought short stories, they're not really for me because they're too short. I like to have a long, hence the name. It's called short stories.
Yes.
Go figure.
I know, it's funny how that
crazy.
Works.
And so there's a very in-depth look into short stories, and as part of that paper you have to write your own short story, right? So whatever paper you're doing, so there's short stories, poetry, whatever, non-fiction, fiction, you've got to write in that genre. And I'd never written a short story, but I wrote a short story. It goes through all your peers, your classmates, they all read it and give a bit of a critique, and then the tutor, after that year, because we're taught at NorthTec that the second part of being a writer is learning to submit your work, because again, you can write it, but
for critical evaluation,
perhaps to get before it's going to get to any publisher, it's going to have to go through some critiquing, and other people have to get their eyes on it and read it,
refinement and stuff.
So when I left there was I looked up about where to put my short story, because you get taught that as well. And
where to publish,
where to send it,
right,
to get it considered for publishing, or get considered, because there's a lot of journals you can send your first works to, and they might consider it. And I looked all that up, and as I was looking it up, an award competition came up called Pakuranga Awards,
right,
which is short stories. It comes around every 2 years, and I thought, I'll send mine in for Māori writers.
Very cool. Yep.
So I thought, I'll send it in, and I didn't expect for it to go anywhere because it's my first short story I've ever written, but I was following that process of, to be a proper rider, you've got to go through these.
Yeah, yeah.
Refine yourself, get a tougher skin,
Yep.
get used to the rejection.
Yep, yeah.
All that's all part of it. So I
Yep.
thought I'm going to run towards this and get used to getting rejected, because it's like a badge.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
I've got my first rejection letter.
Yeah. I must be a writer.
Yeah.
It's been rejected.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I sent in my short story, and you wait and you wait and you wait. And then I got an email saying, unfortunately, your story hasn't been selected for shortlisting, which I knew.
Okay.
And
Yep.
I was like, that's cool, whatever. But then about 2 days later, I get an email saying, congratulations. We have chosen your short story to be included in the anthology. So the anthology has the winners plus selected.
Yeah.
And I was so elated.
What an honour.
Because it's my first short story
one
ever.
Yeah.
And then it gets selected.
Yeah.
And I got to go to the book launch and get photos. It goes on TV on Te Karere. It was like crazy amazing. Like I felt like a celebrity.
Yeah, I mean, photos are important, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I was on TV.
Yeah.
I can look it up.
That's on TV. It's so funny.
Yeah, and I just was so happy because it was like unheard of for me.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, it was selected out of all those stories in that book, it was selected to go on Reading Room by Steve Brunius. He chose to put my story on his website.
Wow.
Out of that, to promote that book.
Yes.
That anthology. And so really, technically, it was that one story was published twice in 2 different areas. So I was like, I can't believe it, from my own short story, my first short story.
Yeah.
But that short story went through 100 edits. I
really?
think I'm even cutting that down short, because by the time I got finished with the story, I was sick of that story. I didn't remember what was in the story and what I'd taken out of the story. But when you read it now, I think, it's actually the best version.
Yeah.
So that was the first one. I self-published as part of Level 6 at NorthTec. You have to self-publish through Amazon, which I did, 3 short stories.
Right, okay, yeah.
So that's how intense the program is with NorthTec.
Intense.
Yep, it goes through publishing, it goes through grammar, and it teaches you because it does it.
Yep, carry on.
Yeah, so I wrote a play. So at NorthTec, we have a paper which is plays and scripts. I wrote a play, and that play was also published. Or it was a young adult play.
Wow.
So, and that's my first play I've ever written, of course. So that was published as well, and I thought, oh wow, that's pretty lucky.
Can I find this play and purchase it?
Maybe. I could just give it to you because I still own it.
A little bit interesting.
But
so one of the things
it's a young adult play.
That's fine. Is it like a large cast or small cast?
1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 12, 15.
Okay, so a bit of a larger cast.
With some audience as well.
Yeah, okay.
You know.
What was it about?
It's so cool. I love it. If I could get someone to bloody do it, I'd.
Okay.
It's about.
What is it about?
It's called Jump.
Okay.
And it's about these animals competing in an Olympic kind of style to be the highest jumper. So you've got a flea, a frog, a rabbit, a kangaroo, a cricket, previous last year's winners who are the commentators, and they have to do this race. And obviously the premise is that only males can compete in this race.
Oh, hello. Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
And this 1 year Ruby rabbit decides she wants to compete.
Ruby rabbit. Yeah.
Yeah, and she finds out and looks into all the rules, and then she signs up. And last year's the commentators. One's name is Kelvin Kangaroo. He's supposed to be Australian, obviously. Kelvin's
and a great name
he
too.
hates the fact that Ruby is now competing. It's not allowed. It's not fair, because it's always been a male's
dominated
race.
sport. Yep.
Yep. And in the end, I can't tell you. It'll spoil it, won't it?
No, don't tell us. Don't tell us. But
So basically, she's done a bit of training, and she's saying that rabbits hop, leap, and jump.
Right.
Whereas grasshoppers just hop, fleas just jump, kangaroos just jump. She's got all three down packed, and the last race that determines it all, you have this last part of the component, which is a hop. Like, what's the 3-step long jumps?
Oh, the triple jump?
The triple
hop,
jump.
Step and a jump. Yep.
That's basically what it is. So, I'm not going to tell you the rest. But the characters are all lively and insects. And I love it. And I want to probably put it forward to the school journals, because they do plays in the school journals. Mm-hmm. But I just have been slack, to be honest.
Okay.
Once I got it published on this it's an American teaching resource site.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, once I got it published on there, I was like, tick the box, published. But really, I love that place, so this is my favourite piece for ages.
Let's go back to the short story for just a little bit, because obviously that's sort of where your first big win is.
Yep.
What was it called?
Botched. You can look it up on the Newsroom website, because it's published there still.
It is?
Yep, Newsroom.
That's how I found it.
Oh, so you read it?
I have.
Oh.
In preparation for the interview,
so
I actually read it.
You did some research.
I do research,
oh,
yes.
Wow. Okay.
There you go.
Botched,
yeah. That's very cool, though. And so you have botched, you pass your level 5. You have level 6, and you pass that as well, for which we have jump that comes out of
jump
that
came
as
out
well.
of level 5.
A level 5, sorry.
Yep. What came out of level 6 was my first flash fiction piece I'd ever written, which has also been published as well.
It's being published, or
it
has
been? It has been published.
Right, what was that called?
It was called Waiting for Arorangi.
Yes.
Yep. And it's now my favourite piece, because of how I felt when I wrote it.
Right.
But to me, and I probably should have hit while the iron was hot, or strike while the iron is hot, and keep going.
Yep.
And honing those skills, the short story writing and the flash fiction writing, because obviously I've gained some success from the first debuts of them.
Yes.
I should have. But in my mind, I thought, oh no, it's almost like I didn't think I could identify as a writer, really, until I've written a novel. I know that's ludicrous, that's just so silly, but we do things for silly reasons because they're in our head. And I thought, no, until I've written that novel, successful or as published or not, until I have and I'm happy with it, I've kind of thought I'm not really a writer. Well, I'm struggling with the novel, not going to lie, because it's a very different genre. It's a beast, really.
Yeah.
And as much as I've had all this advice, just, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, just do one chapter and make the chapter like a short story, because that's basically what a short story is. It can be a chapter, because every chapter has a beginning, middle and end anyway. Mm-hmm. You think that would help me? No. I still see it as this massive elephant, which is why sometimes when somebody, not mentioning any names, who proclaims to be the writers' police asks a certain question.
Just so people are aware, that Marino is referring to me. I will, on a weekly basis, ask her how much writing she has done. I'm fully aware that I am the writer police. I keep her on task.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
No, and I know it's a disciplined art, this writing business, and I'm not an overly disciplined person. I am either full on hot or full on cold.
Okay.
Yeah. So
not a lot of middle ground.
There's very little middle ground. If you catch me on a middle ground, well, you are lucky.
It's a rare day.
Yeah, it's a very rare occasion, and I've worked that out about myself. But that hasn't helped me come up with a solution as to how I sit down.
One of the organisations that proudly supports the Northland Artist Conversation is Creative Northland. I'm going to take just a moment to talk to you guys about it. Creative Northland have been absolutely vital in helping this project get off the ground through its infancy and all the way through to where we are now. We couldn't have done what we've done without their assistance. What we suggest is that if you're a creative person and you haven't heard of Creative Northland, we highly recommend that you reach out to them. Creative Northland, simply do a Google search. They're the top result. These guys are wonderful. They're all creatives in their own way, and they're all very, very well respected throughout the industry that they work in. They're very hardworking, absolutely committed and dedicated to helping the creative people throughout Northland, whether it be through simple things like starting up a project, all the way through to putting on like an exhibition, for example, all the way through to working out how they can start turning what they do into a business. It's all free advice. They give really, really good guidelines and helpful assistance to make sure that you, as a creative, are able to get the most out of what you do. Creative Northland, highly recommend them. Check them out. So you're talking about the challenges and the difficulties about finding the discipline to be able to sit down and write. You've been able to do the short story, and you've been published, get the tick, and then you've been published again and had a little bit of an acclaim for that one. So you get the double tick, and then you do your play and you get the tick for that. What is it, in your opinion, that's made the transition from short story and play to novel writing so much more difficult for you?
I'm an avid reader.
Right.
So since I've learned some writing techniques and skill, when you read books now, like once I've finished my level 5 and level 6, and I should do level 7, but I'm doing something else, you read books differently now, because you look at the whole character arc, you look at the eyedropper bits they're going to drop in that is going to come back, and it's changed my whole way of reading now.
Do you find that you sort of look at them a lot more like through a bit of an analytical lens, and you go, oh, I get why you've done that, because that leads into this, and
correct,
you did this where I don't think you needed to, and
exactly.
Does it sort of take the joy out of reading a little bit?
Yeah, you for me, this is for me personally.
For you,
yeah. Whereas before I used to immerse myself in the story, and I was just living in that story for however long I was reading that book.
Yeah,
and I didn't give a crap if the grammar wasn't 100% correct, or they introduced a character that was only there for 10 minutes. But now when they introduce a new character, and because I've looked at why would you introduce a character? Because as the writer, you're the creator. Why would you do it? It's got to be a reason why.
Yeah, what's the motivation for it?
To move, the whole point of writing anything is that your words are going to move the story forward, right?
Yeah.
If it doesn't move the story forward, then take the words out, because there's no point in having it in there. So when I've read things now and I've seen a new character get introduced, and if it's too weak a character, I think, what is the point of this though? And it niggles at me until I figure out what the point is. And if I get to the end of the story and there was not enough of a point, I think that's lame. That was wrong. And who am I? I'm not a Stephen Spielberg.
Stephen King.
Yeah, Stephen King.
James Patterson.
I'm not any of that. I'm nowhere near like that. But then I think to myself, do they think that? Do they analyse? Or do they not give a shit and just write? Right? And that's where I'm stuck right now, because I see my novel as a huge elephant. And the reason I see it that way is because it's super important to me. Like I've had this story in my brain since I was that 16-year-old girl. It's not the same story as what I said before.
Okay, so another story then.
A different story, but it's really deeply entuned in my heart and in my brain, and there's reasons why I've carried this story. I don't know the nitty-gritty of it, which is probably why I'm struggling, because I know what is in the story, but I don't know how to marry it all together.
Right, yeah.
Without me getting hurt, because I know artists put themselves into their work.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And I know for me, I do the same thing, because everything that has been published so far, and they're my first evers. So to me, that's quite a miracle. I must be good at it if it's been picked up. But they had me in it. Yep. Every one of those had me.
Yep.
I was in the words. And so I feel like with this novel, it is me, but I'm almost sabotaging myself because I don't want to put me in the words too much.
Right, okay. You're wanting to sort of hold a little bit back for yourself and not give too much of yourself over to the words. Yeah.
And unfortunately, I can't. I have to put it all out there. And so I have a writing coach, and she says to me, you know, the difference between writers and why we choose different writers that we like to read their books and everything, it's got a lot to do with their style, sure, and they may have a method, right? But it's because somewhere in there we identify ourselves in it, or there's some authenticity in there.
Okay, sure.
That is really belongs to just that person.
Yep.
And even if because I know I've read what I've written in the past, and I can feel myself and hear myself in it. You hear it's like a musician, like even if they progress and improve, if you know them really well, you will be able to pick up it's them playing a tune over someone else playing the exact same tune with the exact same instrument. You'll just know.
Like Carlos Santana, for example.
Exactly.
He's got such a unique style, and you can hear the tone, and you can hear the chords he plays and the little solo flurries he has. You can listen to it and go,
that's him.
That's Carlos Santana. Because the sound is recognisable.
That's right. And I feel that's the same in all creatives, and I believe it is with writing. But I know that for me to get that authentic voice, my that's just for me, I have to be vulnerable, and I don't like being vulnerable. I don't know how many people like being vulnerable, but it's not my favourite thing to do.
Yeah.
Because by being vulnerable, you're going to hit those emotional nerves, and then maybe I might cry, and I'm not really one for crying because I think it's a bit of a weakness to cry. I know that's rubbish because I've cried a lot in my life, but I just say to myself, don't cry, don't be a baby and cry about it. Like, harden up. But when I'm writing, I have to be so in it to the point where I am going to be like crying and a mess. And I just, right now, I keep blocking myself from feeling it.
Would you say that you're at a little bit of a crossroads? You're like, you know where you need to go. You know what you need to do to get there. But then there's this flow of traffic that's kind of
like Frogger
stopping you. Yeah, like Frogger. For young kids, Frogger is a game that we used to play in the Spaceys parlours. Yes. Before iPhones. But Frogger, essentially, because you've got this, you're here, and you've got the other side there, and you've got this lane of traffic there. I keep bumping the microphone, sorry. And this is all of your fears and doubts and the reluctance that you have to sort of do anything like that, to be vulnerable, to be open, to allow yourself to share those emotions so you can progress to the next stage, which is where you can open up and write more freely. Do you feel that's sort of where you are at the moment?
Yes, it is, 100%. And because there's also that fear of success, right?
Yep.
Which, mine's a bit of a two-pronged thing at the moment, right? First short story I wrote was published.
Yes.
First play I wrote was published. First flash fiction I ever wrote was published.
Yes.
And now it's like, now you're writing, what if you write this and it doesn't get published? Because really you just had this three-peat luck.
And that's that imposter syndrome.
That's right, telling through. You're not even that good.
They've found you out now.
Yes, now that they've given you something much more tasky to do than a short story. And
a little bit, 40 pages, a little bit easier to write than 300.
Yeah, and so yes, I am concerned. And I was concerned about, because I'm quite a private person, believe it or not. I don't like people knowing who I really am. And, I thought, I'm happy to write. And I've met people who are like this. And they've said, I'm happy to write, but I don't want to be seen as the person who's created it or known as the person who's created it. Which is why I had that non-diploma. There's various reasons why. But I'm still a bit private, and I would hate to be like, was it you? Was it your? Oh, I couldn't deal with that. I can't deal with that.
Right. Okay.
So I'm afraid of that as well.
Yeah. So you got a few of your own self barriers in the way as well.
That whole, what if you become successful? Because as I'm sure you know, and all humans, I guess, life is progression, right? You don't get to a point and then you go, hey, yay, I've made it, and I'm just going to sit here and be dormant and then become extinct. You don't. You are there, and then you're like, hey, what else can I do? Oh, maybe I'll do this, or maybe I'll do that. And so I'm afraid that if I do succeed, however I measure success to be, will it mean that I'll want more and more and more and more because I am that hot and cold person? I am the extremes. Or will I be happy that, phew, I've written it? Will that be good enough?
I can tick it off now and I can move on.
Or is it going to be, oh, now I've written a novel, I need to write a series. Oh, I need to write a TV series, whatever, sitcom, whatever.
Short film.
Yeah. Perhaps a short film.
Perhaps a short film.
Perhaps. And I get afraid of that because I think, oh gosh, so much discipline in there.
Yeah.
So much more work. Like you can't write unless your bum is in a seat writing. And as much as I love writing, I do. Yeah, I find it hard sometimes to actually sit down in that seat and do it. I will do absolutely everything else. I will vacuum inside of my car. I'll clean out fridges. I'll weed all the gardens. I'll do anything else. Besides sit down and just write. To the point where my writing coach said to me, "Why don't you just go into your office and tell yourself you're going to write for 5 minutes, just 5 minutes," because maybe it was the whole task of it being so big.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, I'm going to be there all day. She said, so why don't you just go in and put a time limit of 5 minutes? And I can guarantee you won't just write for 5 minutes. I mean, you could write the same word over for 5 minutes if you wanted.
Yeah.
And it works. Look, these things work.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
But because I'm hot and cold, I get bored very easily. And so I have to fool myself. So if I fool myself, I'm just going to come in here and write for 5 minutes. That works for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Because I'm fooling myself.
And then at 5:01.
I'm like, you stupid idiot, you're falling for this silly fooling trick.
Yeah.
You don't even want to write, okay, I'm going to go to the shops or whatever it is that I do. And then I regret it. And then my writing coach said, you shouldn't do that either. Don't punish yourself for things that you should have done, because then that puts a negative spin on it.
Yep.
But
well, punishing yourself kind of takes away the joy.
The joy out of it.
And the satisfaction and you have that real sense of accomplishment. That kind of all disappears. And I remember reading, I think it was a book that Stephen King had written quite a few years ago called Danse Macabre, where he talks about, I think it's Dance Macabre, I'm not too sure if it is, but I remember reading something where he talks about the discipline of writing. He goes into his room. I think he had a typewriter at the time. He goes in the typewriter and he writes 2 pages without fail every day.
Yeah.
And that's his discipline. He said he can be in there and he can knock out 2 pages in 5 minutes, or he can be in there for like 15 hours trying to sort it all out. But it's 2 pages. And he gets through it like that.
Yeah, well, these things do work. We're told, I've tried numerous things. Oh, God bless my writing coach. Writing coach sounds pretty amazing, to be fair. Yeah, she is amazing because she's put me through numerous different personality tests to find out what makes me tick, because you shouldn't work against a habit, basically.
No, not at all.
Because that's going to make you hate what you're doing.
Yeah.
So work with your habit. And obviously I have a habit of just being a social butterfly that just flits around and doesn't actually sit down and commit. Mm-hmm. I'll own that.
Yeah, sure.
I'll own it.
Just wear it with pride. But at least you're self-aware.
I am self-aware, but the next step is to actually take that information and use it
Yeah.
and work with it, which is where I've tripped up a little bit. I can write in cafes really well as long as no one starts talking to me. Because if someone starts talking to me, oh, well, I forget that I'm there for writing and start talking.
Time to have a conversation.
Yeah. I've actually come up with an idea of what I want to write next, but I've got a lot of projects in my brain that I want to do.
Yes.
But I kind of told myself
Gotta
yeah, well, all of them have to be, they all require me to sit my butt in the chair.
They do.
Now, if I can't sit my butt in the chair for this novel, which means so much to me,
Yeah.
then how are the others going to work? So I have put the brakes on myself. I haven't written anything but this novel for over a year. It's not even... Anyway, I won't tell you.
Would you say it's like quarter done, third done, half done? Do you feel...
No.
Like, where's the story? Or are you like going, man, I got through like a chapter and a half out of what I see as a 12-chapter story. Go me. Where do you feel it's at? Be honest.
I feel a lot of the times that I'm ready to throw it in and actually not write it. Yeah, because I feel like, oh gosh, this is just turning into a big mess. Because what happens is, I don't know for anyone else, but for me, in my writing process, in my head, oh God, it's an amazing story with all this stuff and so much content and the characters are amazing, blah, blah. But when I go and sit down and write it and reread it, I think, well, that's rubbish.
Right, okay.
Who's going to read that?
Yeah.
So I did a first half of the novel draft, right? So it was something like 50,000 words. And I thought, yes, this is great. I'm loving it. Put it through with my coach, and she said, okay, let's put that aside and write it again from the beginning. And I thought, oh God, mustn't have been very good. But it's not that. Basically, the process is if you've written something, you put it aside and then you start again, the gems will come out then. You might pick up some things that you've written before, but some other stuff that you haven't, right? So I did that.
Yeah.
So I'm now on the second part, and that whole first part, half of that stuff isn't even in the... It's like a completely different story.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Okay.
So I feel like, yay, that was a good thing to do, because now all the crap's come out, really.
Mm-hmm.
But that story had more of the bones of a novel than the one I'm currently writing, because I had worked hard on having plots and where they were going and the characters and who they were connected to, whereas this one feels like a big mush because I haven't because I'm a pantser. There's a difference between a pantser and a plotter when it comes to writing, and I feel like I'm more of a pantser. I just sit down and write it off my, the seat of my pants just comes out, blah blah blah.
Right. I was wondering where the expression came from. I was like, a pantser?
You write,
Seat of my pants.
Yeah, seat of your pants. It just comes out.
Yeah.
Right? You don't plan characters or scenes or settings or anything. It just blew on the page.
Yeah.
Plotters will sit down and work out, okay, I want 20 chapters. This chapter's going to be about this. This chapter's going to be about that.
Flow diagram.
Yeah, and all of that.
Uh-huh.
I'm actually half. And I think most writers will be a higher percentage of one than the other, but I'm very high percentage pantser. But pantsers use that as an excuse. Oh, I'm a pantser, so I don't have to sit down and plot it all out. But we still do.
Because
of course you do.
I mean, a book's got to have continuity the whole way through. You can't write, Detective Mills suddenly appeared at the gym, and then it's like next chapter.
He's eating Chinese.
And having Chinese whilst in Singapore
doesn't make sense.
Yeah, you're just like, wait, I feel like there's a lot missing here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that goes through the revision stage. So I'm in the second draft, technically, but it'll be the first draft of this. And this is a much better story, to be honest. It's a more raw, authentic story.
Okay.
But it's just harder for me to write. So...
And that's because it's raw, because it's a lot closer and more personal?
To me. The other draft dealt in facts, what was happening, to whom, in what area, blah, blah, blah. This is more about this particular girl. It's based on a girl and her relationship with her grandfather and something that happened in his past that has overflowed into her life.
Right.
Subconsciously.
Sure.
And so it means a lot to me because... Yeah. you'll just have to wait till I've written it.
Right.
And then you can research me and you
yeah.
can find it, but won't be able to read any of it because you'll have to buy it because it's been published. And it's a bestseller now.
It is.
Yeah.
That's good. I mean, it must be one of those frustrating things where you want to get it out. You need to get it out, but at the same time,
I'm afraid to get it out.
You can't get it. Yeah, can't get it out. Yeah.
I'm afraid to get it out for numerous reasons, and I've discussed it with my writing coach. But she talks about the purpose, the reason. I can't even remember the terminology she uses, but it's why do you want to write this story, right? Because she talks about
what's your motivation.
Yeah, your motivation is.
Your personal motivation.
Why do you want to write the story? Because the story can only be written by me.
Yes.
It's my story.
Yep.
I can give you all the details, but what you write will be way different to what I write.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because there's that emotional disconnection.
Correct.
You know, if you were to say to me, here's all the information,
write the story.
Go ahead and write it, I'll be like, oh, cool. Facts.
Yep.
You know, there's none of the context and subtext and emotion behind it.
That's right.
There's none of the additional backstory that's not in there.
Yeah.
Because as much information as you can give to someone about something, they're never quite going to word it or say it or phrase it the same as you.
Correct. And we all have our own voice and our own styles.
Yeah. Definitely.
When we write. And I've realised that I do have a style. Because I mean, one of my favourite authors, I've read all of her stories, and she does have a style, and to the point where I was like, I'm getting sick of the style that she writes.
Sure, yeah.
That might be because I started learning how to write, so I've changed how I look at what she used to write, perhaps.
Absolutely, yeah.
I don't know, but I know I have a style. I don't know where it came from. It's just in me. And
sure.
So I know it's there. I mean, if it wasn't there, I couldn't have written what I've written, and it couldn't have gone in front of other people's eyes and they liked it. I could like it, but we all writers love their own work. They do. Artists love their own work too. You do.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean everyone's going to love it.
No.
Something I was taught at NorthTec as well. Just because you love it doesn't mean someone else is going to love it. And I know that.
Yeah.
But everything that I write, I've got to love it. If I don't love it, it's like what I said about the 3 that I self-published on Amazon. I don't not like them, but I know they're not my best work. So I never say, oh, yeah, well, and I also have.
I'm published on Amazon. You should check out my work.
Yeah, I never say that, and so you shouldn't have said that. Yeah. So.
That's really interesting. That's unbelievable. Wow. Okay. I'm going to say a few things and then we'll sort of wrap this up. I get how hard it is to be disciplined with stuff. When I was writing lyrics, I would go through massive patches where nothing would come. But then there'd be these big patches where I'd write a song in like 15 minutes. And then I would be like, oh, that's really good, but that's too brutal. I'll just throw that away. And then I'd write the next version and throw that away. And then the third version was kind of the one that was amazing. So I get that. And the discipline is hard because, I also like to play guitar, right? So sometimes I pick up the acoustic and I go, all right, now what? And there's just nothing. Absolutely nothing. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. And often, sometimes I got to start playing cover songs, and then once you get on the cover song vibe, you just never get off that.
Oh, so you don't get to the...
No, I never get to it. But I will say that having known you for as long as I've known you, I think you sell yourself incredibly short because I have read some of your work, and it is actually genuinely really good. And I don't read anywhere near as much as I used to. I mean, I think the last big novel I read was Motley Crue's The Dirt, which is a biography, and it's an autobiography. It's a great book. But I used to be a voracious Patterson, King, and Kuntz guy. And I just found your stuff really, really good. So I think you should stick at it persevere, because I know the people that are watching and listening would love to hear.
Oh,
and
really?
and on those high notes, Marino Begman.
Yes.
Thank you very, very much for coming in and sitting down with me today. I really do appreciate it. And it's been nice to get to know you a little bit better than what I already knew. And, I know our listeners and viewers are going to really enjoy it as well. As someone who reaches out and talks with the artists, it's nice to have one of the team on and in the chair sitting down. So thank you so much.
My pleasure, Mark.
Wow. Just an excellent conversation. Man, so many really, really cool things learnt about Marino. I think, the really, really big takeaway from me out of all of that was, as I said in the intro, her life growing up. Man, in Pakuranga, that was just absolutely fascinating. She talks, she speaks so openly as well. The story about how her life is just so crazy as a kid. She's like, I'm going to write a story about it. I'm going to change everyone's names. And then how her sister sort of catches on to the non-diploma that she has, and then doesn't do anything about it. Nothing at all. And then one night at the dinner table just drops it and says, let's ask da-da-da-da. And it's just like, oh my God. And you could tell, because it's such, you can hear from the way she speaks, it's such a close-knit family as well. And that's really cool. So for me, there's probably the big takeaway out of all of it. It was just so lovely to hear the passion that she has, and she talks about doubt, having self-doubt as well. When she goes, she speaks often about how she doesn't think she's an amazing writer or anything like that. Yet at kind of every touchstone, she's like won an award, and she still goes, it's a bit of a fluke, really. Well, and that's the thing, is for some artists it can feel that way. She's working on her first full-length novel at the moment, and as she talks about it, how it becomes personal, and she adds parts of her being and her upbringing into the novel to make it really personal for her. And, I think a lot of people do that with their art in general. They put a lot of who they are intrinsically into what they do. And look, we've had some fantastic artists come and sit in the chair and do, talk about that exactly. I think that's really amazing. Obviously, we're going to get this out as well. It's going to be amazing. And where can you find that? Well, ladies and gentlemen, you can find us on the socials at Facebook and Instagram at Northland Artists Conversation. You can find us on YouTube for our visuals, which is Northland Artists Conversation. And you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts under Northland Artists Conversation. Make sure to check us out. Each episode goes live every Thursday, round about 7 o'clock. And we do try to make sure that we're pretty consistent. We've been good so far. So awesome work. I'd like to thank the team for actually doing all of the behind the scenes work and getting everything sorted. It's been amazing. We also have Patreon as well. Patreon is where you can do a little bit more. You can give back to the podcast. We have 2 tiers. First one we have is a cup of coffee, and that's $5 a month. Second tier we have, I've very affectionately called it Coffee Addict, and that's $20 a month. And with the $20 a month tier, you get a few perks that you don't get with the $5 tier. Now that is patreon.com/Northland Artist Conversation. I think that's really cool, is the fact that we have everything as just Northland Artist Conversation. And if you're an artist out there and you're not on our radar, we would love to hear from you. You can email us at hello@northlandartistsconversation.co.nz. Now, we've got some fantastic guests coming up. We've got, I'm just sort of trying to remember off the top of my head who we've got. We've got another painter, designer, illustrator. One I'm really looking forward to is we've got a swordsmith. I think it's a swordsmith. This guy makes blades, and they look amazing. So I'm super looking forward to sitting down with him and having a chat. And hopefully he brings a couple in so, we can have a look at them as well. I think that's going to be really, really exciting too. We've got some really amazing guests coming up in the next few weeks as well. So super looking forward to that. But on that high note, straight to that camera. Well, it's actually me. It's not really Andrew. It's just me. My name is Mark Kelly. Thank you very much for checking out the Northland Artist Conversation, and we'll see you guys real soon.